Why is it, Congressman Issa, that he so much wanted this to be public, and now we'll get the transcript that will come out in the next day or so? What was it that he didn't want to answer? Are there questions that you think that will get asked, won't get asked?
Well, he wanted a public spectacle, and he really wanted 5 minutes back and forth with members taking shots. He almost got it because he is going to have that transcript public very shortly. The one thing I can tell you today that surprised me is that under Trey Gowdy's questioning and John Ratcliffe's, it was the Justice Department, meaning the FBI attorney who's in there with him, that time and time again, I think to his pleasure, told him not to answer question after question fundamental to the investigations that brought him there. And so there's no question in my mind, we're going to be over at the FBI, we're going to be over at the Department of Justice, working out the details for a great many things that they came prepared not to answer.
Like what?
Well, I have to be a little careful. Let's just say, in broad brush strokes, everything related to Hillary's investigation, everything related to how they got onto it and what their process was, everything related to the FISA warrants and the fake dossier, broadly, those are the areas in which time and time again, he's not answering. And I have to be careful because the transcript's not out, and I want to respect the process. But I think the one thing that's remarkable is, even though I can't tell you what he did say, I can tell you this large swath of very important information he's not saying.
Well, was he asked at all, and can you ask him at all about why employees who were showing bias in their text messages were not completely removed from the agency? I'm talking about Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, who were all over texting on their work devices about how they wanted to keep President Trump out of the White House.
When the transcript comes out, you're going to see incredible detail by Trey Gowdy of those questions, exactly the ones you're talking about. And you're going to be displeased, but maybe a little surprised at the answers.
Displeased? You can't
well,
give me...
you're not going to accept the answers as the answers that you would think a forthright individual would give.
All right. Can we also talk about leaking? Because
yes.
That conversation was deepened when we found out. I mean, we knew that there were leaks of phone calls with world leaders and the president's early calls with those that were made early on in his presidency, and that sits in one lane. But when you have the FBI director leaking to a buddy whom he knew about certain things that we now know to be true, did you ask him why he did that?
Those questions are being asked, and this is exactly where Comey speaks out of both sides of his mouth. You know, he doesn't want to answer a lot of questions. Even when he answers, I would call them evasive. And then, as you say, he's been a master of leaking. And, you know, what's irritating, Harris, and I think what the American people really are upset about is the FBI will claim these privileges of ongoing investigation, which, by the way, is not a legal privilege, but it's one they claim. And then they will, for their own purposes, leak what they want to leak to get something, and then complain about leaks. You know, one of the things I learned in 18 years here in the House is that if you believe in transparency, you have to be consistent. The FBI is not consistent. And we in Congress have to make sure the executive branch becomes more consistent in either they don't tell anyone something because it really does protect sources and methods and lives, or it's open to the public at a reasonable time as their right to know. And we're not getting that.
All right. Congressman, I'm curious. You're about to leave. You're exiting. You're on the Oversight Committee. If you guys don't get the questions now, will we ever get the answers to some of these questions? A very quick last word.
The last word is, with Fast and Furious, when the Democrats were in control of the Senate and Senator Grassley was lied to, it was the majority in the House that worked with his staff to get the truth for him. The reverse has to be true. The majority in the Senate, the Republicans in the Senate, have to pick up whatever's being left behind for absence of leadership in the House, and I hope they will.
All right. Darrell Issa of the great state of California, thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you.